Greetings. This is Peggy Miller, Highland Winds LLC. I'm the medical herbalist that has been recording this overview. Overview of medical herbalism, predominantly Chinese and Ayurvedic, with touching on different Western herbs and thoughts. And this is part 7 of the overview. Each segment is 15 minutes. After the overview is done, I will launch into individual categories and go into quite a bit more depth on each of the subjects that I'm touching on and trying to explain a little so that those new to this can gain a sense of the subjects and the approach and the reasoning behind medical herbalism, behind Chinese and Ayurvedic herbalism. So today, in part 7, I want to continue on the issue of fluids. Last week, I talked a little bit about energy, ki, and blood. And when I say a little bit, I mean a little bit. I will be going into these in far more depth in the individual segments. But still, I was addressing, and I'm continuing today to address that there are 3 parts in addition to the yin-yang and the tridosha. The ki, blood, and fluids, moisture, are all critical to both the need to balance as well as the performance of your physical system and your emotional, mental system. I keep saying the physical system, and I guess I've gotten so used to including emotions and your mental state within that I use the term physical to include those things. So today, having talked about ki and blood last time, I wanted to add in the moisture issue. Moisture is critical to the performance of the body and of the mind and the heart. Moisture is what moistens all of not only your blood, which carries a lot of moisture throughout your system and nourishment, but it moistens the organs, the throat, the lungs. All of the components in your system, bones, need moisture. If they get too dried out, they will not function properly, and then they start to disintegrate. So moisture is critical. Now, moisture is something that's acquired not only through diet, but also through just the system itself. Now, body fluids have 2 functions. One is to moisten, as I just said, the skin, the hair, the bones, your muscles, ligaments, all of your brain, joints, bones. Moisture moistens everything. But also, moisture does shift into the blood, and the blood is sort of regarded as a separate component because of the way it nourishes and activates the cells in your system. So blood is sort of looked on separately because it exists within veins and capillaries and arteries, and just like energy, and I didn't go into this very much, and I will in the individual segments, energy is in channels, very distinct channels, much like blood is. But moisture moves throughout everything. And as I was saying, I had to stop there for a second. Let me get back into it. Moisture is a critical element that moves throughout the body, whereas energy does move in channels and blood moves in channels. Moisture moves throughout the system and moistens, and it's very important that we have enough moisture in all of our ligaments, muscles, bones, brain, the different cells, the different organs, the liver, the heart, all need to be moist. Now, sometimes I will say, just as an aside, that the spleen needs to be dry, and it does not function well if it's too moist. And so a lot of times one of the problems can be that if there's spleen key deficiency, then there's an overabundance of moisture and then the system is not working correctly, and moisture will build up and the spleen will get too damp, and then a lot of problems ensue from that. But the system needs moisture. And so the spleen, working with the lungs and the heart, help to break down food, transport it through the lungs to the heart, where it then shifts some of the nourishment to the blood, and then the rest of the moisture is then transported throughout the system, including right under your skin. As your skin gets drier, that can be easily an indication of spleen, lung, heart, sometimes liver is included. So moisture is critical. So you've got energy, or ki, blood, and moisture as three critical elements in the system. Two of the final other ones that I wanted to touch on were essence and shen. Essence, and I found both of these terms fascinating, to be honest, as I studied Chinese herbalism. Essence is your base vitality. You're born with a certain amount of essence, a certain amount of vitality. And life slowly saps at that. It takes from that. And it's important to try to keep your essence as strong as possible. In Chinese traditional herbalism, essence is considered the element that helps you not only feel vital and feel alive and have energy, but it helps the blood be nourished. It helps the hair grow, the skin have a good, not by good complexion, that's the wrong word. That implies something else. But there needs to be a sense of life to the skin. And the more vitality a person has, the more essence a person has, the more alive they feel, and their system is usually, it's an indicator of good balance. There are ways to increase your essence because it gets depleted simply as you get older. But some people are born with low essence, a very small growing cycle, a body that's too small compared to their genetic family is often an indicator of low kidney essence. And there's ways to increase essence. Losing your hair way too young, way younger than would be considered normal, is another sign of low essence. The herbs that can increase this, like cornus and schizandra, are two. Also, qigong is another way to bring up your essence, to increase your essence, to draw it out from. Sometimes essence gets sort of buried under the troubles of the day, and ways to bring it up. Qigong is one of its goals is to do that. So essence is another part of looking at the system, a person's overall system, and trying to determine what is going on and where there's deficiencies and where there's excess and what balancing herbs and diet and exercise are needed. And finally, shen. Now, shen is another word for spirit. To me, in some ways, this is one of the more complicated, but at the same time, I think things become complicated because we ignore their simplicity. And heart, shen, when you say someone has a loving heart, somehow we kind of have a sense of that. You know, universally, if we say they have a very loving heart, they have a great deal of heart. there is a sense of what we mean by that. Well, in Chinese medical herbalism, Shen, S-H-E-N, is in a way their word for that. But they look at it as almost another entity, a thing that must be protected and nourished and needs to be allowed to reside in the heart. If the heart gets too hot, if it's too hot, the heart does not like to be hot, literally hot. Hot from heat, hot from diet, hot from stagnation. If it gets too hot, the Shen does not reside in the heart well, and then a person might experience what's called racing brain. When your mind races at night, when you try to go to sleep and your mind's just racing and it won't stop racing, that's a sign of the Shen not being housed in the heart. And there are ways to help, there are herbs that help clear stagnation, take heat down, clear heart fire, clear mucus in the lung area and in the pericardium area, which all contribute to Shen not being able to reside. So herbs can help. And in addition, this is where meditation, or even as a practitioner, one of the jobs, and one can forget this, you get focused on herbs, which herbs to help something. But in addition to herbs and diet and exercise, is just maybe that person needs to be listened to. Maybe what they're saying is their job is horrible and they've got to get out of it. Or their relationship, or their location, anything. Listening to someone and affirming them as an individual takes time, but it's also a part of balance. And it's a part of emotional balance, and it's another way of helping the system maintain the Shen. So Shen is another part in this whole overview of different elements that all contribute to balance of the physical system. Physical including emotions and mental state, vitality. All of these parts are critical to physical balance. And so when you're trying to look at these items, there's a way, believe it or not, you get used to kind of balancing them, and you do get so that you acknowledge them, that you see them each for their individual importance. When you're thinking of your own health, one of these things may stand out to you. You may feel that fatigue is your main problem. But there are other elements like willfulness, the ability to make decisions, which can indicate a gallbladder issue. The different emotional states are all a contributing factor to figuring out what's going on with your body or someone you care about. And I will, as I've said, go into these in more depth, but the whole grouping is important. And a lot of times someone does have a deficiency in only one or two things. Sometimes it's across the board because something has existed for long enough that it then has caused problems in other areas, and they mount on each other one after another. And I will be going into all of those things more in this next overview part 8. I will do a wrap-up, and I'll try to kind of just summarize these different elements to some degree, just touching on them, and then I'll leave it at that. I'm thankful to MCAT for allowing me to record these and to hold a podcast time. They've been great helping me to do this, and I look forward to working with them. So I will be signing off now. Peggy Miller, Highland Winds LLC, highlandwinds@gmail.com. You have a great day. Thank you. Bye.